In the heart of northeastern Africa, where the Nile carves its eternal path through the desert, lies a land that once stood at the crossroads of two great worlds, Egypt and Nubia. For centuries, Egypt's story has been told and celebrated. Its pyramids, its pharaohs, its gods. But far to the south, beyond the cataracts of the Nile, another civilization flourished, a kingdom of Black Pharaohs who rose to power, conquered Egypt, and ruled with vision and strength. This is the story of Nubia and of the Kushite pharaohs, Africa's forgotten kings. To understand the rise of the Black Pharaohs, we must begin in the earliest days of the Nile Valley. The people of Nubia were among the first to settle along the fertile banks of the river, cultivating grain and domesticating animals as early as 600 BC. They lived in small communities, trading with their northern neighbors in Egypt. Archaeological discoveries show that even in these early times, Nubia was rich in culture and resources. The land yielded gold, ivory, ebony, and incense, treasures that would draw Egypt's attention for millennia. The Egyptians called this southern land Tarseti, the land of the bow, a name that reflected Nubia's mastery of archery and warfare. As Egypt unified under its first pharaohs, around 3100 BC, it looked southward to Nubia with both curiosity and caution. The early Egyptian dynasties sought to control the flow of goods from inner Africa. Nubia, positioned between Egypt and the riches of the African interior, became both a trade partner and a strategic rival. Over centuries, the balance of power between the two lands would shift many times, sometimes through war, sometimes through alliance, sometimes through the merging of their cultures. By around 2500 BC, a great Nubian kingdom had arisen, the Kingdom of Kerma. Centered near the third cataract of the Nile, Kerma was one of the oldest urban centers in sub-Saharan Africa. Its people built massive mud brick structures, known as defufas, which served as temples and royal monuments. The western defufa, still standing today, testifies to their architectural skill and religious devotion. Kerma's rulers controlled vast territories and maintained complex relations with Egypt's Middle Kingdom. They traded cattle, gold, and slaves, and in return obtained Egyptian luxury goods, scarabs, and jewelry. Yet Kerma was not merely influenced by Egypt. It was a powerful and independent civilization in its own right. Excavations have revealed lavish tombs filled with rich offerings, fine pottery, and human sacrifices, evidence of a complex social hierarchy and a belief in the afterlife. The kings of Kerma were buried with hundreds of attendants, showing both their authority and the depth of their spiritual traditions. As Egypt's power grew under the new kingdom around 1550 BC, pharaohs like Thutmose I and Thutmose III launched campaigns deep into Nubia. They sought to control the gold mines and secure the Nile routes to sub-Saharan Africa. Egyptian soldiers conquered Kerma, burning its temples and incorporating Nubia into Egypt's empire. For nearly 5 centuries, Nubia became an Egyptian province. But conquest did not erase its culture. Instead, it transformed it. Nubian nobles were educated in Egyptian temples, learned the hieroglyphic script, and served in the Egyptian army. Temples dedicated to Amun, Ra, and Isis were built along the Nubian Nile, blending Egyptian gods with local deities. Over time, Nubians became Egyptian in religion and art, yet they never forgot their own roots. Deep in their hearts, the idea of a southern kingdom endured. When Egypt's new kingdom collapsed around 1070 BC, after centuries of glory, its grip on Nubia weakened. The north fell into chaos, divided among rival dynasties and priesthoods. In the south, however, the seeds of revival took root. Around 900 BC, a new Nubian dynasty arose in the ancient holy city of Nubia. The rulers of this new kingdom saw themselves not as Egypt's subjects but as heirs to its sacred traditions. They worshipped Amun, the hidden god, with fervent devotion. They built temples and pyramids inspired by Egypt's past, but with distinct Nubian style, steep-sided, elegant, and smaller, yet rich in symbolism. The Kingdom of Kush was reborn. Among the early kings of Nubia was Alara, often regarded as the founder of the new Nubian line. His successors, Kashta and Piankhi, would change the course of African history. By the time Piankhi came to power around 750 BC, Egypt was in turmoil once again. The once mighty land of the pharaohs had fractured into competing states, each ruled by local princes. The north was dominated by the Libyan dynasties, while the delta cities were controlled by rival warlords. To the south, in Thebes, the high priests of Amun still held power, and they shared a deep spiritual bond with Nubia, where Amun was also the supreme god. Piankhi saw Egypt's disunity as both a threat and an opportunity. Guided by religious conviction and political ambition, he embarked on a campaign to reunify the Nile Valley under his rule. In his inscriptions, carved on a granite stela found at Jebel Barkal, Piankhi described his campaign not as conquest, but as divine mission. He marched north with an army of archers, horsemen, and war chariots. City after city fell before him. He purified temples, demanded loyalty from Egyptian princes, and reasserted the worship of Amun. His approach combined military strength with religious legitimacy. To the Egyptians, Piankhi presented himself not as an invader, but as a restorer of Ma'at, the cosmic order that bound heaven and earth. When he captured Memphis, Egypt's ancient capital, he spared the population and performed rituals of purification. In doing so, he symbolically healed a fractured land. By the end of his campaign, Piankhi had united both Egypt and Nubia under one crown. For the first time in history, the Pharaoh of Egypt was a king from sub-Saharan Africa. Piankhi's reign marked the beginning of Egypt's 25th dynasty, the dynasty of the Black Pharaohs. His successors continued his mission. His brother, Shabaka, ascended the throne after him and established his rule over all Egypt. Shabaka was a scholar and a builder. He sought to restore the glories of Egypt's Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom. Under his reign, Egypt's temples were rebuilt, its priesthoods revitalized, and ancient knowledge preserved. One of his most famous acts was the preservation of an ancient theological text, the Memphite theology, which he ordered to be copied onto stone to prevent its loss. This text, inscribed on what is now known as the Shabaka stone, speaks of creation by the word of Ptah, and reflects the deep spiritual and intellectual currents that flowed through the 25th dynasty. Under Shabaka, the arts flourished. Sculptures from this period show a remarkable blend of Egyptian formality and Nubian individuality, strong facial features, full lips, and powerful bodies rendered in stone. These works are not merely art, they are symbols of pride and identity, proclaiming that African kings now ruled the Nile. Shabaka was succeeded by Shabitku, and then by Taharqa, perhaps the greatest of the Kushite pharaohs. Taharqa's reign, from 690 to 664 BC, was a period of grandeur, prosperity, and spiritual depth. His empire stretched from the confluence of the White and Blue Nile to the Mediterranean Sea. He was a warrior, a statesman, and a visionary builder. In Thebes, he expanded the great temple of Amun at Karnak, adding colossal columns and gateways. He also built at Kawa and Gebel Barkal in Nubia, leaving behind inscriptions that speak of his devotion to the gods. Taharqa's name appears even in the Hebrew Bible, in the Book of Kings and the Book of Isaiah, where he is mentioned as the Ethiopian king who aided Jerusalem against the Assyrian invasion. This reference illustrates the vast reach and influence of his reign. Yet Taharqa's greatness also drew the attention of new enemies. To the northeast, the Assyrian Empire had risen as the most powerful military force of the age. Its kings, Esarhaddon and Ashurbanipal, sought to dominate the Near East, including Egypt. In 671 BC, the Assyrians invaded. Despite fierce resistance, their armies captured Memphis and forced Taharqa to retreat to Nubia. Though he regrouped and launched counterattacks, the Assyrians' relentless campaigns eventually drove the Kushites out of Egypt. Taharqa's successor, Tutankhamun, made one last effort to reclaim the north, briefly reoccupying Thebes, but the Assyrians retaliated with devastating force. By 656 BC, the 25th dynasty's rule over Egypt had ended. Yet, while Egypt fell under foreign control, Nubia remained independent and unbroken. The Black Pharaohs withdrew to their homeland, where they continued to reign for centuries. From Napata, and later from Meroe, the Kushite kings built a new civilization, one that blended the legacy of Egypt with the vitality of Africa. At Napata, the royal necropolis at El Karu and Nuri became the burial ground of the Kushite kings. There, pyramids unlike any in Egypt rose from the desert, steep, narrow, and elegant, pointing sharply toward the sky. The tomb of Taharqa at Nuri, one of the largest in Nubia, symbolizes the enduring power and dignity of the Kushite line. Over time, the political center shifted further south to Meroe, near the sixth cataract of the Nile. There, the Kingdom of Kush entered a new phase of development, distinct yet deeply connected to its past. Meroe was a thriving metropolis, surrounded by fertile lands and rich in iron ore. Its people became master ironworkers, producing tools, weapons, and art that sustained a powerful economy. The city was a crossroads of African and Mediterranean trade, linking the Red Sea, the Nile, and the interior of the continent. The rulers of Meroe continued the tradition of pyramid building. Over 200 pyramids still stand in the Sudanese desert, more than in all of Egypt. Though smaller in size, their symbolism was profound. Each pyramid represented the divine ascent of the king or queen, a bridge between earth and the heavens. The art of Meroë reveals a fascinating fusion of Egyptian, African, and Greco-Roman influences, a reflection of Nubia's position at the heart of ancient global exchange. The Kushite religion centered on Amun, but also embraced local gods and goddesses. The temple at Meroë Sufra, with its maze-like design and colossal lion statues, shows the creativity and diversity of Kushite religious thought. The lion god Apidamak, unique to Nubia, represented royal power and warlike strength. Perhaps most remarkable was the role of women in Kushite society. The title of Kandake, or Queen Mother, denoted female rulers who held immense political and spiritual authority. Some Kandakes ruled as sovereigns in their own right. They appear in inscriptions wearing royal crowns, leading armies, and negotiating with foreign powers. In later centuries, when Rome conquered Egypt, it was a Nubian queen, Amenarines, who led her armies north to confront the Roman legions. She captured Roman outposts, destroyed their statues, and forced Emperor Augustus to negotiate peace on equal terms. The spirit of the Black Pharaohs lived on in her courage and defiance. Though the 25th dynasty's direct rule over Egypt lasted less than a century, its impact was profound. The Kushite pharaohs revived the ancient traditions of Egypt, restoring temples, codifying laws, and re-establishing the primacy of Amun. They brought stability and unity to a land fragmented by civil war. Their reign was a cultural renaissance, a bridge between Africa's deep past and Egypt's golden memory. Modern archaeology continues to reveal their achievements. Excavations at El Karoo, Nuri, and Gebel Barkal have uncovered tombs, inscriptions, and artifacts that illuminate their world. Scholars have found that the Kushites maintained a highly organized administration, a strong military, and an artistic style that emphasized realism and power. Their images were not idealized copies of Egyptian art but proud declarations of their own identity. The 25th dynasty also stands as a symbol of the deep interconnectedness of African civilizations. The flow of culture, trade, and belief between Nubia and Egypt was not one way. It was a centuries-long exchange that shaped both peoples. The Nubians did not simply imitate Egypt, they reinterpreted it, preserved it, and gave it new life. When Egypt's memory faded, Nubia carried the torch of its legacy. By the time of Meroë's decline around the 4th century CE, the world had changed beyond recognition. Yet the monuments of the Black Pharaohs still stood along the Nile, silent witnesses to an age when Africa ruled the ancient world. Their pyramids, their temples, their inscriptions carved into stone still speak across the centuries. They remind us that the history of civilization is not confined to one land or one people, but is shared across the continent of Africa. Today, in the deserts of northern Sudan, the pyramids of Nuri and Meroë rise against the horizon, their sharp silhouettes catching the first light of dawn. Few visitors come, and yet they endure, symbols of a past that refuses to be forgotten.